I have a dare for you at the end of this. Okay, so wait for it. So a few years back, I was working alone out of the office at my dojo, and I found myself paralyzed on the floor, unable to move. And I wasn't sure what was going on at first, but as my systems began to shut down, and I was having trouble breathing, I couldn't lift my arms or my head, I thought, I'm having a heart attack. And then I thought about my wife and my children and all those I was going to leave behind, for whom I still had so much to do. My next thought was, if I stay here, no one is going to know that this is going on, and there's no way I'm going to survive it. So I began to crawl, not on my hands and knees, but squirm rather awkwardly. And what seemed like an eternity, it was probably only about 15 minutes or so, I made my way to the chiropractor's office next door. And there Lucy saw what was going on, and she dragged me into the back of her compact car and drove me to the urgent care facility. And they checked me in right away. And after about an hour or so of poking around, the doctor announced that I was having an anxiety attack. I should have been relieved, right? But I wasn't, because I knew he was completely and totally mistaken. For the simple reason that I don't get anxiety. And I'll tell you why. I'm a sensei. Not an ordinary sensei, but a 7th Dan, highly trained master instructor who has spent years studying in Japan and spent half a century mastering the arts of inner calm, breathing, and personal mastery. So you see, anxiety is something that people in my position don't get. That's something that happens to other people. Evidently, I'm also a master of the fine art of denial. And I was going to have to come to terms with the source of my paralysis. So the moment when I slammed into the realization that living a life of just fulfilling tasks and goals really sucked, and the epiphany that followed, it took me by surprise. Now, some of you are probably going to really be able to relate to what I'm saying. And for the rest of you, you might know somebody that's going through this or has gone through this in the past. See, at that point in time in my life consisted of just fulfilling tasks and goals, which was doing all the things that I had to do, and not nearly enough the things that I really, really wanted to do, which was work on my dreams. And it was this that was killing me. And right around the time frame when I was having this catharsis, I had an encounter with a gentleman by the name of Bill Sinkin. And Bill Sinkin was responsible for bringing the hemisphere to San Antonio back in the 1960s. See, he had dreamed against much opposition about bringing the World's Fair to our city. And this is a huge event with infrastructure, accommodations, a monorail even. And he prevailed. And to this day, you can still see the Hemisphere Tower characterizing the skyline of our city. But at this encounter with myself and Mr. Sinkin, we sat down and he had a file folder in front of him this thick. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, Bill, what's in the folder?" And he leans towards me and he says, "Future projects." He's 96 years old and he has a folder this thick full of future projects. I was around 50 at that time, and I didn't have any dreams or future projects that I was working on. And this is causing me deep despair. So the idea that goals suck and dreams are epic, it's easy to say, but living into it takes courage. And what I mean by goals suck is I mean it sucks to stop right there with just goals. And I'll tell you the problem that I have with goals. Goals are predictable. Goals are achievable and realistic. Goals have a tendency to distract us with the way things are and limit what we believe is possible at any given time. Compared to dreams, goals are safe. Where dreams challenge us to our very core and compel us to make the world a better place. Now, not all dreams are earth-shattering. Some of my initial dreams were just personal, and it took a lot to put those into motion. But once I cleared that inventory, it freed me up to work on bigger and bigger dreams, and then help others work on their dreams, which now has taken on a life of its own. So I have this dream of building a world of dreamers and doers, where every student knows why they're in school, and every employee is coming to work, not just for a paycheck, but to work on their dreams. The challenge, though, is twofold: a resistance to change and fear of failure. Us humans, we have a natural resistance to change, and we actually prefer the familiar, even if the familiar is below average. And fear of failure has its layers. Failure is personal. Our self-esteem is at risk. Failure is social because of humiliation, embarrassment. And failure is also practical because the opportunity cost associated with setbacks. But for some of us, the greater risk is that things would stay the same. Michelangelo said, most of us are in greater danger, not of setting our aim too high and falling short, but setting our aim too low and hitting the mark. So let me tell you about a couple of those who did risk it, dared to dream, and improve their worlds just a little bit, or maybe even a lot. Let me tell you about Rachel. Rachel was the queen of the skeptics, and she thought I was the devil for having this dream mentor program where we would talk about her dreams and, God forbid, maybe even do something about it. But you see, Rachel's superpower was that she was in full control and took full responsibility for everything that happened in her department. The problem with that was she could never leave. And, she did admit, though, to having over-the-top levels of stress and being overworked. But that was never going to change. Another reason this dream stuff was a complete waste of time. Well, finally, she did let go of control and started off by taking some weekend trips without text or email. And boy, were her employees happy about that. And then eventually she let her hair down and got off the grid and took some overseas trips, extensive ones. And then her stress levels were lower. She was not only accomplished, but now much happier. And her employees were now much more empowered to take responsibility because she realized that for her to follow her dreams, she was going to have to be a better mentor to help other people grow in their jobs. I think it's a very cool ripple effect. But let me tell you about Gary. Gary went to conservatory to become a composer of classical music. But about 10 years ago, his father passed away, and then he started a family and took a job for a Fortune 100 company. Everything was going along just fine, except for one thing. Gary hadn't written a note of music in almost a decade, and when he was offered to compose an original piece of music, he turned it down. Turned it down, the thing that he spent all those years learning and that he loved to do, and it was a paying gig. How does that make any sense? Well, you see, Gary had lost his confidence in his ability to compose music and was unwilling to risk giving up his tasks and goals to do something where he just might fail. Fortunately, Gary and I have been talking about his dreams and the courage it takes to do epic stuff in our life. Even more fortunately, Gary accepted the commission, wrote the piece, got it published, and collaborated with the orchestra when it was performed for the very first time. This is what I love about being in the dream business, having a front row seat to people doing epic stuff in their lives. I also have a dream about changing what it means to be sent to the office. We all know what it means to be sent to the office, right? So when I was a kid, I was sent to the office a lot. And one time, for having taken a personal day, I was sent to the office. Me and my friends, we had been seen riding our motorcycles across the campus during school hours. And in our minds, we thought that decked out in our race gear, that only the students that we wanted to impress would recognize us, but somehow the teachers wouldn't. Let me tell you how well that went. The next day, I was sent to the office. And my mom was sitting there next to the principal and the school firing squad. And they explained to her that I had been spotted doing wheelies across the playground during recess, and now was going to be suspended for my crimes against humanity. My mom was pretty awesome, though. She stood up and declared in her Dutch accent, "My son Winslow would never do such a thing. He was home with me all day, sick in bed." I totally wanted to high-five her at that moment. Thanks, Mom. But when we got home, I was in the biggest trouble ever and grounded for life. There were several other incidents that took place around that time. And I think it really helps me mentor the kids that I get to work with today. But the real problem that we face in our country today is that our graduation rates in our high schools are only 80%. That means we're losing 1 out of every 5 of our students to dropout. And the ratio of students to guidance counselors is only 400 to 1. But you know, schools that have mentor programs have graduation rates of 97% for the students enrolled in those programs. So what if being sent to the office didn't mean that you're in trouble for some behavior or performance issue, but you were being sent to the office to work on your dreams? How would that change the culture and outcomes in our schools? Well, we actually have begun working on this, and we're starting to see some really positive results. So whether it be in schools or in the workplace, helping people become more intrinsically motivated is about tapping into what they really, really want to do in life and expanding upon that, instead of harping on compliance and coercing performance in some sort of way. Actually, I admit to being a repeat offender of this sort of mechanized thinking. And as a recovering organizational development practitioner, I've been both accomplice and author of several performance management systems that measure not only performance, but also deficiency. And I'm not proud of it. And the return on investment of these programs is spotty at best. But management likes it because it gives them a sense of control. I don't want to give organizations tools for control. I want to give organizations toolkits for innovation, disruption, and creativity. I want our students and employees to push the limits, the boundaries of the arts and sciences, to disrupt our technological limitations, and to solve the social and environmental problems we all face. Well, now that I've built a Dream Mentor program that's both in the analog and the digital formats, I'm kind of blessed to be able to do just that. But the dream to build a world of dreamers and doers is not without its challenges. Actually, right now, we're building the Spanish language version of the platform called Millones de Sueños for reasons of broader access. And we're continually improving the app so that everyone on the planet can have access to work on their dreams. And we're talking about adventure dreams, social impact dreams, startup dreams, relationship, spiritual dreams. It's amazing to see the aspirations that people have in different parts of the world. And you can actually see this on the social feeds on the app right now. But whether it's on the digital platform or in the analog, on a social app, mobile app, or in a workbook, as long as we keep our learning and growth positively charged and our aspirations purposeful and meaningful, I think not only are we more successful and fulfilled, but I believe that we can leave the planet a little better than we found it. So I challenge all of you to change your own status quo. I challenge you to change something in your life that's holding you back. I actually challenge you to disrupt something and make the world a better place. And so here's the dare. I dare all of you to dream, and dream really, really big. And not only that, to work on your dreams and make them a reality. Thank you very much. Domo arigatou gozaimashita.